Hello everybody. I would like to devote today's video to the Vladimir Kramnik's statement about fair play once he played one of the chess.com tournaments, and there were two cases where he thought that the players were behaving unfairly. Okay, so just the background of that kind of thing. He played the tournament on chess.com, which was, I think, the section that he played and he complained about was 10 plus nil. Therefore, he had no increment to play till the end. It is just like one straightforward, giving you 10 minutes for the whole game. And there were two games that kind of probably triggered his outburst, criticizing the modern tendencies, internet tendencies playing chess. Okay. I would like to get a little bit of a background here as well because you won't probably understand what he is talking about. First of all, Kramnik is a Russian chess player. His rise was at the end of the Soviet Union, of course, and he played with the for Russia since then. I want to tell you something that Russian mentality, which is obviously Kramnik's one, doesn't really match the Western mentality, and that's a really important thing because I want to accent our review on that as well. The whole problem here is that Kramnik, as the person who represents Russian mentality, as I said, was born in the Soviet Union and therefore he lived in Russia. So in Russia, to understand, there is really a little bit of a problem with law. Um, Throughout the history, Russia never had a law or any kind of legislation applied to all people equally. I know you could just discuss about that and say like, well, in the United States it's the same case and so on. No, no, that's not the same case. Believe me. In Russia, there was a lot of proverbs about law and legislation, like saying law is like a rain, wherever you pull it goes that way, or something like that, and so on and so forth. People were never equal in front of the law. Okay, whoever had rights is always right. That's how it was in Russia throughout the entire history. Therefore, for Russian mentality, it is there are two things: there is law and there's fairness. Okay, and since law is not always fair, people try to search something like within their values, which is fairer than the law. I can also tell you that the Russian legislation has a lot of things that were passed. Probably like I wouldn't be exaggerating that, like saying somebody woke up with a huge hangover and saying like, well, like let's just pass this law, and everybody who was also participating in this party would say like, yeah, oh shit, yeah, let's just pass this law. They passed this law which was accepted without any discussion and so on, without deep discussion, let's put it this way, and passed through, and this law might contradict another law. It's really common in Russia. Really, really common. And it's actually creating a really, really kind of favorable ground for punishing people. Because if one law contradicts another law, it is impossible for a sane person to say, like, well, A is true, B is true, can't be both true, right? When they're contradicting each other. That's the whole concept about Russia. Forgive me for going a little bit astray from our main discussion, but you have to understand this principle. So for Russian mentality, law and fairness, they're two different things. Okay? So therefore here, as a background of what happened with Kramnik, we could say that he played a game, a tournament, where the control was without increment. Therefore, his opponent technically his opponents were technically allowed to flag him, right? Flagging is a really common thing these days. Whether it is ethical or not, it depends on the situation. But in the most cases, people were just playing till bare kings, trying to flag you whenever you are in time trouble. Okay, so that's the whole background about this thing. Why Kramnik is so upset about it. Now let's just go to the games, and we will just like to look at the games and see what happened in most of them. Well, not in most of them. I'll take two of them, which probably triggered Kramnik's outburst. So first game was against Dmitry Andreikin, who is also really common or really famous Russian chess player. He also participates in all of these events on chess.com. He's quite strong at blitzing. He's quite strong in general, but he's really strong at blitz in particular. He took some of the first places there as well, and there are obviously some monetary prizes for that, for playing those games and winning in the tournaments. Okay, so here's the game about Andrei, and I think it was played in the fourth round before the tournament end. So Kramnik played black, and here what happened. We will just skip the opening here, and just in general, White had quite a significant advantage in the beginning, but then the advantage started to slip away. But Draken pretty much kept the advantage throughout the whole game. Here he starts to slip, but still White has a significant advantage in here. Okay. Now Kramnik starts to be, starts to play quite exact and tries to get some of the. Now Draken makes a lot of inaccuracies here, which allow Kramnik, in fact, to equalize. Okay, so the game comes to the position where Kramnik has knight and some pawns against Draken's rook, where you will see that in a while. So here we go. The rook is sacked for the queen, and here we go. This is the position. Okay. So if you look at the computer evaluation, it is 0. Is the position playable? Of course it is, because you can make a lot of different moves. Actually, black could try and play for a win. But yeah, well, it is again disputable, debatable, because white still has one pawn, white has exchange, and nobody knows how the game would go. So here, well, from this position, Kramnik's statement was that, well, that is dead draw, really. He's right. He's right. Objectively, he's right. The game is drawn when two people agree on that one, when there is the kind of perpetual or the position repeats itself 3 times and so on, or 50 move rule is applied. Normally, people, who respectable grandmasters, would agree on that one. Here is the different format. And I want to mark that because the format itself has nothing to do with the fairness. It just says 10 minutes to each player without increment. That's it. How players behave within that period, it's their total, depending total on their behavior. Okay, so here Kramnik is objectively correct, saying that the position is dead draw. Okay, whether it is playable, we agree that it is yes, it is playable. So here it goes. White's king infiltrates here, but even though he does that, it is still a draw. Okay, we can see that computer gives some of the plus, but then it just settles down and it still says that this is dead draw. Okay, so now since both players are quite experienced, they just start to maneuver. Now there's a really funny situation where black wins another pawn, exchange. Well, in theory, this combination of pawn and the knight against the rook, it's still a draw, right? Still a draw. Even one knight against the rook is a draw in most of the cases. But is the position playable? Yes, it is playable. And here it continues to play. Here is a funny moment, and Draken blunders. After that, Kramnik should have won the game because he misses that there's the fork on c7, grabbing the rook, and therefore white wins. Kramnik by that time has 26 seconds. Really hard to understand why he didn't fork, but probably it was just like the excitement of the game. He probably missed that because he was convinced it is a draw. I think he was just heading towards the draw in this position. Okay, but he didn't take that one. So the game takes another turn. Now it will take a lot of time from the opponent to get to a draw, in fact. Okay. Here, you see that they were already trying to threefold repeat the position, and that's where Kramnik's flag fell. Okay. Again, in theory, it is a draw. it is really hard to defend by as black, but it is drawish, right? So he just needs to stay away, don't let himself get checkmated. Okay, it is a draw. Whether the position is playable, yes, it is playable. Should Andrakin agree on a draw here? Not entirely clear, because to me his play here was quite fair in terms of, well, you can still play this position, right? It is not like they draw here or something. You still have chances to play. Okay. Kramnik's argument was that if you were ethical, you would accept the draw here. I don't know if he offered the draw during the game or not, but technically, objectively, Kramnik is right, saying that this is a draw. Whether Drinkin should agree to the draw here, that is disputable. Okay, so that's what's the first thing, and that's why this thing about fairness versus lawfulness comes in play. That's why I explained to you what Russian mentality would say in this case. Law says yes, in this position you've got no increment, so therefore you yourself should be planning your time in such a way in order to not to lose on time. So whom to blame? In fact, right? Kramnik, had least time to think. He was in time trouble. Therefore he lost. Okay. From the human perspective, from the objectiveness, the position was draw, and from the fairness perspective, as Kramnik applies, well, look, people should be respectful and offer him a draw. Okay, something like that. What is right, what is wrong? It is up to us to decide. Okay, whatever every one of us thinks here. I would agree that lately, once you play internet chess, flagging your opponent is just become like a really common thing, really widespread. Even our Sublime Nakamura, who is the Blitzer King, he flags people just going with the dead draw end game, playing with the rooks sometimes and so on. I didn't see that personally, but I heard that happened. All other players as well. So technically it becomes a norm, whereas it is not actually chess. And taking in general this whole concept, internet blitzing is not really chess, guys. It's not chess. Yes, that has elements of chess, but all of the things that you are put in, all the time trouble, all of the dirty tricks that happen, we will see that in the next game. This is became kind of not a ritual, but common thing in internet chess. Okay. One more thing that Kramnik actually sees is that people use pre-moves. It's a valid argument in my opinion, because in real chess and over-the-board blitzing, you don't have such things as pre-moves. Yeah, you need to make a move and press the clock. You cannot really make your move before your opponent made his move and press the clock or anything like that. This in the internet, you've got this thing as pre-move. In my opinion, my personal opinion, which could be wrong, which could not really, go by your opinion, I think it is wrong. I think people must not have pre-moves. In chess.com, by the way, on chess.com, you're allowed to make, I think, up to 5 pre-moves, really, which saves you time. It just deducts like one tenth of the second or something like that for a pre-move. In my opinion, that's wrong, because once you're playing without increment, you should be playing after your opponent made a move. You should make your move. That would be fair, in fact, right? It doesn't bring anybody to do any kind of dirty tricks in here and so on. That deprives, it makes the blitz actually resembling chess, more or less. Okay, so that's what my personal opinion is. What my personal opinion is about that kind of topic of pre-moves. On leeches.com, by the way, you can make only one pre-move, which is also not really. Not. I would personally, I would ban all of the pre-moves. In fact, because that's just, well, that's just nonsense. That doesn't really resemble the real game. Okay, but that I also arguable. You could say like internet is different type from the real game, etc. Totally agree with you. I just expressed my opinion. Now, let's just come to another game which is far more dramatic, which is I think it was Vincent Kamer from Germany who played against Kramnik. Kramnik was black as well. So the game came pretty much in Kramnik's favor for the most of that. And what happened afterwards, you will see. I will just quickly go through the entire game and see what happens. I'll show you what happens. Okay, as you see, it is you're going towards black's. It's favorable for black, of course, because black has already got one extra pawn here, and it comes to that thing where here this is the blunder what black made, and well, again, white could capitalize on that, because yeah, the best move here was to move with the pawn. Not really obvious, but yeah, black just centralized his king, and here white didn't use the black's blunder, because he could just change everything. I think it will be drawish if you go to the uh, rook's endgame in here. Okay, but black didn't see that. Black played the other move, and here the position gradually stabilizes. Black has two pass moves now, right, which is clearly saying that black is totally winning in here. And by the way, black has more time by that moment. Okay, I can just show you. I don't know if you can see that or not, but no, you cannot really see that one. Black has 51 seconds here, white has 26 seconds. And if you go through that, you will see how black's time actually disappears gradually, because white is more experienced in this game and he plays on pre-moves. Currently, this situation, black has 15 seconds, white has 5 seconds. But black just makes moves, right? He just makes moves. He goes checks, checks, checks. Now, in this position, black has already got 4 seconds and white has 2 seconds. White goes on pre-moves, of course. And here is the final stroke. Look at that. So here, black had 0.4, which is less than a second. White had 1 second and 6 milliseconds. And here goes the trick. He takes the pawn with a check. Obviously, black is winning, while when he takes the rook entirely, right, and it would be a draw, in fact. But Kramnik's flag falls. By the look of the video, if you find this video, Kramnik was really upset. He just waved his hand and just stormed away from his disc. I would be really upset too, because, well, look, opponent was not really was dead lost, and the last move was actually a dirty trick, which happens so many times during the game without increment in on those platforms. He took the pawn with a check, and therefore black, having really little on his clock, couldn't really. He didn't really foresee this move for sure, because, well, that's a trick that all of the online players do. They just check that, and the king either has to take. He was not expecting him to take that pawn, and he lost on time. Okay, so that probably was the last straw for Kramnik, and he wrote a really, really long letter. You can also see that on his chess.com profile, saying, criticizing the modern chess and the attitudes and ethics and so on, saying like, well, he is a little bit, too emotional here, because he would throw that kind of things like somebody played unfairly against the veteran ex-champion and so on. I don't think it is relevant in here, but it is relevant for sure once you see these kind of things from somebody else's play against you, clearly playing on time. Okay, now, even seeing that, the whole discussion is whether it is fair or not, whether it is ethical or not. This play is allowed by the format of the games, so there is nothing to do. You should be also in charge of spending your time looking at your clock and playing. Whether the play of white was fair or whether it was ethical, that's a totally different question, right? It is relevant in this case, but it is uncontrollable. It is totally uncontrollable. The rules are set. How you behave within that time frame within this game, it is totally up to a player. In this case, well, look, it is really hard for me to take somebody's side. I know that the rules are rules, and I also know that the player who played white was not entirely ethical playing this kind of game. Um, Comparison to the Endraken's game, it was a little bit different because there it was quite playable situation where you could play. Here we know that black was dead lost, right? There was not even a draw. Sorry, white was dead lost. White was dead lost. There was not even a draw. It is totally lost position. And even the final position when he took on f3 and black was to capture, that was winning. If Kramnik had time to capture that, if he would expect that move and capture here on f3, it would be a draw. Here, Kramnik lost on time. And you see, this whole discussion is about whether the behavior of these players is ethical or not. We are such people that we don't want to take too much responsibility. Here, the rules are set. The Lichess side sees 10 plus nil, that's it, that's the rule. How you behave within this game is entirely up to you. There are also things that Kramnik confessed that he didn't know about, which are pre moves, because he said he was waiting for the opponent's move, then he was making the move. He was not playing on pre moves. Well, not knowing, not really kind of depriving him from the responsibility, really. Okay, you can also argue about that one. So the whole discussion in Kramnik's statement was about being ethical and playing fairly. Uh, Again, it is also depending on the definition of fairness. All those things like pre-moves and flagging your opponents when you have when you are in time trouble, doing all of these little tricks like Kramer did to him, isn't actually allowed. It is allowed, right? Let's just face it. Whether it is ethical or not, that's another thing which is not falling under this jurisdiction. Once you're playing those games, you are basically agreeing to terms of use, and in every civilized world, if you do that, provided that the rules are not really something extraordinary, in this case it is common. So in this case, whether you once you agreed playing on those conditions, you are obligated to, and you should expect those things to happen. Okay, I agree that it's not entirely good. It is not entirely fair. It is not entirely ethical. That's why, in my opinion, this kind of tournament should have some increment to avoid this kind of situation. That this is like a nasty situation, right? Not everybody would like to be in the situation as Kramnik, for example. Put yourself in his shoes, and you would say like, well, you would be probably outrageous. And Draken also reacted to Kramnik's statement. He said like, well, Kramnik just comes to the tournament and tries to set up his own rules. No, he doesn't try to set up rules. He just speaks about the ethical side of this kind of play. Okay, and we can discuss forever. Like it is a wide field of speculations in here, and you could say either this side or that side was right or wrong. Yeah, Western side, Western mentality would tend to go with something like if the rules are set, they are harsh, but they are rules. Therefore, whatever happens within those ruling is actually legal. Russian mentality, which Kramnik obviously possesses, sees, well, even though the rules are set, you should be actually ethical and playing more or less fairly, right? You would be expecting some kind of respect from other players and so on, which is clearly not the case in this kind of games. Okay, it is more like look at it more resembles like if you are a boxer with the gloves and you're playing against you're fighting against a kind of bare knuckle player, which or say like say like Thai boxer, right? Who allowed to kick you as well as punch, So it's like coming to somebody's arena and saying like, well, actually I expect from you just to wear the gloves and like do this kind of thing, whereas the rules don't really restrict you, on that kind of things and so on. So again, look, it is entirely it is a kind of vast field of speculation here for whoever is right, whoever is wrong, whether it is ethical or not, whether it is fair or not. But I will just give you this whole thing as food for for your thoughts and so on. I also expressed my opinion. I know that, well, that kind of thing is entirely lawful, but in fact, it is really kind of debatable from some sort of from different opinions or from our sets of values. Okay, All right, so let me just read the chat. I've already seen one message here. Should they set a rule that states you lose when you can't mate, but your opponents can? Woo, that's again a really kind of shaky grounds here because look, how would you decide who could win, who could not? In this case, White still has a rook, right? In theory, Black might blunder something. I know that Kramnik wouldn't, but in theory, Black could blunder his rook and his bishop at some point, and White could win. So it is not really clear whether he could win or not. The last stroke, after White played his last move, I agree, it is dead lost, but Black lost on time. Well, look, I believe that in this kind of cases, it also allows judges to interfere and decide. I see what your point is. Before he took on f3, it is debatable whether it is whether White could win or not, but there is a possibility. It is like all the rules like once you play opposite color bishops and you have a pawn, we know that it is a draw. But in theory, once your once your king is in the corner, and in theory you could still checkmate that, right? So in theory there is a checkmate, but whether it is feasible against a strong player, no, it is not feasible really. So this is again this kind of position. Whenever White took on f3, his position is dead lost. We agree on that, and I believe that it is also probably would be okay if an arbiter comes into here and says like, well, look, after that thing, it is lost. But again, the other side is, well, he knew that the opponent had a lack of time, and he made this move on purpose to flag him. So again, if Black had enough time, he wouldn't have made this move. So you see my point? It is like it's really kind of ambiguous. He couldn't really say whether somebody could win here or not. We know for sure that Kramnik wouldn't probably lose having a rook and the bishop against the rook, but well, that's really kind of right. You cannot really draw a line here. If you draw a line here, it should be applicable to other situations, and it might be not the case. So I totally agree with you, but how to decide which position is won or not, whether you have got any chances to win or not, that's another case. So yeah, I would even here I would probably be in the doubt to get any arbiters to involve, because whatever could be ruled out by the main set of the main rules for the tournament or for the games, it is definitely overriding whatever arbiter's decision he is. It's here. Okay, is here. So yeah, that was again my personal view on this kind of situation. And again, here Kamer was definitely using pre-moves to flag his opponent, that's for sure, or at least to get to a draw, at least to get to some kind of equal position where he could use his time advantage for Kramnik to blunder whatsoever. All right, so that's for sure. I'm 100% agree with that. That's why I also think that pre-moves should be banned. You should be playing on your own time. Whenever opponent makes his move, you should make your move. The pre-moves are really bad. That's what my opinion is. Okay, but again, that's a really funny situation, not for Kramnik, of course, but in general, and we could discuss that forever. Here, I would just wanted to show and share my opinion on that kind of play on in the internet, and I could obviously hear what you would say about it. Okay, thank you for watching. I believe that it is really kind of exciting topic and that could bear a lot of discussions and so on. And I expressed my opinion on that kind of play. Thank you for everybody who was watching, and see you soon.